Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello and welcome back to Homeschool Together. Thank you for joining us. As always, if you have a chance, head down into the show notes and it's a choose your adventure cornucopia of options. Check out our Gumroad page. Leave us a review on iTunes. Check out the links below as well, and follow us on Facebook, and maybe, head over to YouTube and hit subscribe on our YouTube channel, our ever-growing YouTube channel. There's a lot of options there for you to find. We are now picking up back on our standards talk. We had a couple of weeks ago. We talked a lot about looking at standards, why standards might be important to you as a homeschooler, whether or not you should or shouldn't worry about the standards. We talked a lot about those issues there. We also talked a little bit about how to use AI, our best friend Chatty, to help us decode the problems that we go through every day. ChatGPT, how do I get to work faster? ChatGPT, how do I make this a miso soup? There's a lot of questions out there that Chatty can help you with, and one of those is to help you decode the Byzantine standards that are out there in the world. And today we're going to be actually diving into understanding the math standards today is what I think we're going to focus on today. Actually looking out and piecing together, how is it actually broken down? How does it look? I'm going to link below the Washington State math standards for you to take a look at. Now, obviously, your state may differ slightly, but I know Washington is Common Core aligned, and so we are very similar. And so we'll kind of go off of what we see there. But a lot of this understanding, a lot of what we're going to talk about today will extend easily into your state and probably mimic similar to what you would find if you go look up your state standards.
Well, we can link the Common Core as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The Common Core.
Yep.
So even if you don't want to align directly to your state, if you want to use Common Core, I mean, basically the standards they're adapted by many states and things, but they don't tell us how to teach. They just focus on what your child should be able to understand and should be able to do. So we wanted to just kind of let's take one step back in case folks didn't listen to the first couple episodes. So Common Core Math, it's kindergarten through 12th grade. Most, we kind of focus on these younger elementary, but it does go all the way through 12th grade. And each grade level is got multiple different domains in the math standards. So there's math and then there's ELA. The other things, history and science and stuff, aren't covered under Common Core. A
lot of states will define those standards as well. Like history standards and art standards and PE standards, believe it or not. Yes.
Yeah.
Some of them will adopt outside third parties who define those standards and then kind of bend them in, like the NGSS standards for science. Whatever your state ends up doing, the core of that is going to be around the math and the ELA.
Right.
There are additional standards, but I think, from the standpoint of we really focus on are those, the math and the ELA standards.
Well, those are the national standards,
Yeah.
right? Whereas, your history and science standards are all going to be state specific. So definitely look up your state, but this can kind of give you a clue to how they're written. So in the math standards, there's these different domains that are covered. So the first one is operations and algebraic thinking. So you'll see a little tag, they'll say OA. And then there's number and operations in base 10, which is NBT as its little acronym. And then number and operations fractions is NF for fraction work. Measurement and data is MD. Geometry is G. And then you might see some things in high school like expressions and equations is EE, and the number system is NS.
Yeah, so they get a little bit more complex there.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you, at the beginning of the standard, if you see a small letter code, just go ahead and look that up, and it's going to be one of these basic domains. So this is a bucket of information, and it's, of course, done by grade level, but that'll give you your first clue to like, okay, what section are we talking about here? What are they trying to focus on?
Yeah, and these could almost look like math equations in and of themselves. It
They
could be a little
do.
confusing. So
It's a little shorthand.
yeah, let's go ahead and jump into, just an example of this. So I'm going to read it, Ariel. Are you ready? 3.OA, or is that a zero? That's a zero.
I think it's
That's
0.
3.0A.
No, I think it's OA because it's operations and algebraic thinking.
Ah,
So I think it's
okay.
OA.
We'll say it again. 3.OA.A.3.
Right. So this
It's
would
like
be
the Dewey Decimal System of knowledge.
So it starts with 3, which means the very first number is going to be the grade. So if you see something that's, you got a number attached to it, the very first one is the grade. And then next is that domain area. So the 2 letters are that. The next thing, the next whatever letter, there's going to be A, B, C, D, E, F. That's like the cluster
Yeah,
within that domain.
They call them clusters, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a part of the domain that it's in. And then the last number is the so this in this case you use a 3. That's the third standard in the cluster. So the last two kind of aren't as important to us. I mean, that tells you exact kind of where you are, but really the first 2 sections are what's most important, which is the grade to start, and then those letters which tell you what area we're dealing with, what domain area.
Yeah, I'll read you another one here. 5.NF.B.4A.
Right. So it's going to be 5th grade. NF is numbers and operations fractions. And then your B and your 4A, that means it's the second cluster and part A of the 4th standard. So
And
we don't, kind of that part's like less important.
And I'll go ahead and read what that is. Interpret the product, parentheses, A divided by B, parentheses, times Q as a part of the partition of Q and B equal parts.
Which is when we add it into ChatGPT and we say, what does this mean? Or could you give me an example equation that my student would have to solve to meet this standard? So yes, but this will tell you it is 5th grade and we are dealing with numbers and operations and fractions, right? So these pieces of the code just kind of help us know where to go. But once you know how to read the code, then your next step is, right, what is it actually asking? So you can put it into Chatty, but you can also just interpret the language yourself. So they're using kind of compact academic language like that you've been studying in your degree. It's all for educators, but it's meant for them. It's not meant for us. So it's going to maybe a little bit confusing, but look for like key verbs, right? So like understand, meaning like explore deeply, use models fluently, perform with accuracy and speed, apply, use that skill in real world context. So you're looking for kind of the verb,
The action words, yeah.
the action word of the standard to let you know kind of what you need to do. So, so this one is 2 NBT B7. So it's a 2nd grade, numbers base 10 domain, and it's the
Cluster B, subset standard 7.
Right. So but the standard says add and subtract within 1,000 using concrete models of drawings and strategies based on place value. Okay. So the interpretation would be, so 2nd graders should be able to add and subtract 3-digit numbers, because that's 1,000 within 1,000. So add and subtract 3-digit numbers using blocks, number lines, and mental math, not just paper and pencil algorithms. So those concrete models or drawings, that's going to be your blocks, number lines, right? So it's
beyond just like following the thing. So being able to look at it and say, I'm going to do some mental addition, or I'm going to use some mental addition strategies, or I'm going to use some grouping strategies that may assist me in doing this quicker and faster so that I can understand the concept deeper than just saying, okay, I'm going to, like a robot, order my problem and go one after another. Being able to intuit what I'm doing so that I can then say, is my answer look correct or not? Very often you'll see a kid who will say like 20 plus 7, and they'll write 17. And the first thing you would want them to know is like, okay, 17 is less than one of the numbers that you're adding together. Did that look right? And they weren't even thinking about what they were doing enough to realize that their answer couldn't even be possible. Right. And these are the types of like tricks, the mental strategies that we got to put in front of our children and teach them. So this is what they're kind of talking about, is being able to think about the problem and understand deeply.
That's the mental math portion.
Yeah, understanding that my answer doesn't match. So you'll see a lot of like things at this level. Oh, how do I check my answer? Or how do I validate that I've done something correctly? those are part of the strategies beyond just doing, the algorithm on the pencil and paper that we all remember doing when we were in second grade.
Well, and that's what I did, right? I just memorized things. And eventually you memorize it, but you really have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah, it catches up to you.
Yeah, it catches up to you at some point. So another example, 4NF B4C. So that's grade 4, number fractions, section cluster B, number 4. So solve word problems involving multiplication of a fraction by a whole number. So your interpretation would be like, your child should understand how to multiply a fraction by a whole number and apply that in a real situation, like multiplying a recipe by 3, right? So that's kind of what it means. So it's fun when we interpret it, it goes like, oh, that makes sense why my child would need to be able to do that. So that's kind of the way that we can translate this kind of math talk. And this is where it's great to have Chatty help us. But, you can get some of it yourself. So if you see one written somewhere and you're like, what? Now you'll kind of know, like, okay, this is the grade, this is the domain, this is what it's trying to tell me.
Yeah, and I'm here in the actual standard for the OSPI for Washington, and I'm looking at it, and it's about 93 pages long for all the math standards.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And so I'm sitting there saying, okay, I'm on 28, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages for the 4th grade math standard. So it's not like it feels big, but those 5 pages are very dense. Like if you printed them off, you're right, you'd be reading this really strange wording, but it's not an insurmountable task for us to say, well, I need to know what my learner needs to know. Like for example, if I'm transferring out of the public school into homeschooling because my student was a little bit behind, maybe I need to know and understand what they're missing. Very similar to like a reading assessment, like I know there are math assessments out there where they'll ask you questions, and based on your answers, whether you get them right or wrong, there was a certain concept being shown in that, and I can find the hole that my learner has. So maybe they're having issues with carrying, the 10 in addition or whatnot. I know that's a skill I need to learn on. Maybe they understand fractions. Maybe they understand geometry. They understand, other types of concepts. But this is a whole. Now I need to go ahead and fill that back in. Understanding the standards may be a way for you to understand where your student is missing or has gaps, and how you can move forward from there.
Yeah, exactly. So if you end up having some sort of an assessment and you get something back that your student, underperformed in these following numbers and things, this will give you you'll know where to go. Like, okay, I know I got to go to the 4th grade standard. I got to go to this domain and this cluster, and that's where it's talking about.
And it may help you as well if you run into a situation where, oh, my student's behind, but maybe they're behind in just one vertical category. Like kind of what you said is if you get an assessment and your student is struggling in these 2 out of 6 areas, maybe you don't need to go back and, do a refresher through the 4, so that when you get that curriculum, say you get Math Mammoth or something of that nature, you say, okay, well, we don't need to do chapters 1 through 8. Let's just focus on chapters 9 and 10, which teach those concepts, which are the gaps. For 4th grade, let's get that through. Let's get you, caught back up, and then let's go ahead and start, grade 5 and move forward from there. You can have these type of strategies that can help assist you in tailoring your homeschooling to your learner and exactly what they need.
Yeah, exactly. So how are we going to teach Common Core math at home? So just a few kind of tips, right? You don't have to follow a specific curriculum that aligns with Common Core, right? You can just focus on the skills. This is just if you care about Common Core, you want to check, you might go back to public school, or you're maybe doing some homeschool work over the summer and you fully intend to go back to public school. This will help. Also use a variety of tools. Get yourself all the math manipulatives. You want to get a 3D printer, you can print math manipulatives, but you get yourself some base 10 blocks, number lines, find lots of story problems, and Chatty can be really good with helping you come up with word problems as well.
Well, and also trying to figure out good manipulatives and good ideas for manipulatives as well.
Absolutely. Say, my child's struggling with this piece. What are ways that I can make or buy something hands-on that helps, them get through this? Right?
Yeah, and just kind of like a tangent, it's almost like a math tutor in some respect to help you, or almost like you're paying for a math tutor to, comes up with really cool ideas. So you're right. We've used this a number of times to kind of make things fun. So absolutely look in that way as well.
Absolutely. For conceptual standards, give lots of hands-on time before introducing, the traditional procedure. So like before teaching long division, explore like grouping and repeated subtraction with manipulatives. Make sure that that foundation is really solid. This is one of the areas that I love using Right Start Math because it's got so much hands-on work. And then we come back in with Math Mammoth and we just, we drill and get lots of practice.
The math fluency aspect. Yeah.
Absolutely. So games are also awesome.
Yeah,
games are a great way to go. We played.
What was it?
We played Odin this weekend with some friends of ours, and that is a great game for practicing higher levels of addition. We'll put a link in the show notes. It was awesome. It was a really great and easy card game that we all played, but our daughters got to really practice, different place values, and it was really fun and lots of addition. So one other thing that we wanted to cover here was that there have been a couple of shifts in Common Core methodology. The first one is, fewer topics per grade. You said there's only 4 pages or 5 pages for 4th grade, for example. They're focusing on fewer topics, but more depth. So like grade 1, for example, focuses deeply on addition and subtraction, but it doesn't touch on too many other unrelated concepts. I remember when we were in school, the textbooks, it was funny because we never ever finished a textbook. Not a single year of all 13 years of my schooling did we ever finish a single textbook. It was always just kind of hopping around. And there's always sections in the math textbook that were not like the focus, right? They were just kind of, fluff is maybe the wrong word, but they were extraneous information to that, 3rd grade classroom or whatever it was. And so I think that's what they're doing now is kind of tightening up and saying like, where do we really want to focus and leave out all the kind of extra myriad things.
I find that to be pretty interesting now that I've gone through, at least 5 levels of math curriculum, both with Math Mammoth and Right Start. You're absolutely right. I remember skipping through so many things back in the day. The funny thing is both those curriculums, they cover time, they cover, money, and a lot of aspects that I wonder if they're not actually covering that, because if you read the standards, there are no standards in there talking about, real world applications for these types of skills.
That's interesting.
They may call those out and you may get those in kind of like a word problem form, maybe in the regular schools. But like they have whole chapters in like Math Mammoth and Right Start talking about money, talking about time, talking about shapes and geometry.
Very early.
The
shapes and geometry stuff is very early.
And I would love, maybe I should go and see if I can dig up some type of math curriculum that maybe like one of the local schools in this area are using and see if they actually cover those topics. I could be wrong, and they may actually cover those topics. But I was actually, when I first hit it, I was like surprised that they every single level, they just kept coming back to that. And none of that is called out in any of the standards. So it's kind of interesting. But what they did is they brought back the skills that we learned earlier and the concepts that we touched earlier into, time telling and money, adding an hour, taking away an hour at like the 1st grade level. Very simple addition and subtraction in that manner. But they kept coming back to it and all these other, skills that it was almost funny because I feel, I actually felt like, well, we don't need to do this. Like, why are we doing this? We need to do math. It's like... Oh,
really? I was super excited when they learned how to tell time. Because I was like, oh, thank goodness.
It's a great skill to learn. I mean, obviously a skill they were going to have to learn.
Yeah.
But I found it very funny that they would include it in the curriculum. It wasn't my expectation that it would be there.
Right. Yeah, to tell time would be part of it. It's true. Yeah, that's a good point. The other thing that Common Core has been shifting to is coherence. So really trying to build logically across the grades. So they're going to start something in, grade 3 with, let's say that they start fractions with visual modeling. They're going to extend into grade 5, adding multiplication and division of fractions. It's just going to logically build up and get harder. So it's not disjointed. So it's great if you're trying to catch up a student, for example, who is maybe a couple grades behind. You can look at those standards and you can look at that domain and then just kind of like go up through the grades and help to build that line of thinking. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because they do all build. And they're trying to promote balance. So it's between the conceptual understanding of like why this part of math works and the fluency of being able to do it repeatedly. It's all that
with
rigor,
speed,
with speed, and then the application of how to solve problems with it. So that's all your word problems and things. And I know sometimes for our older daughter, some of the word problems are a bit challenging for her to read.
They're very challenging.
And so sometimes like, oh, okay, well, we could just skip the word problem. But the word problems are really important.
All
The
of
dreaded
us-
word problems.
Yeah, all of us listening always remember the word. I mean,
I hated
as somebody
word
who
problems.
enjoys math and did a lot of it, doing the word problems is just brutal.
It's the worst.
It's the brutal.
Because sometimes the thing about word problems for me is that sometimes the language can obscure the math.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like the way that it's written is like, do they mean this or do they mean that? It can be kind of ambiguous. And that's my word problem.
The one thing I always hate with word problems is it feels contentious. Like, am I being tricked?
Right.
Because we always
Yeah.
we always had those bad experiences where
It's a
somebody
trap. It's a trap.
yeah it's a trap.
As I wear my Star Wars
Yeah.
night shirt here.
Exactly. Yeah, like, oh, is this piece of data that's in here, is this a red herring?
Yeah.
And it's like, why are we like? I understand why they do that. Like
Because in the real world,
in
you're
the
going to have
real
all
world,
of
it's
these
messy.
different pieces of information.
Exactly. You need to find the right information and be able to solve the right problem based on what is presented to you. I totally get that. But sometimes it does feel very adversarial.
It does. I hate word problems. As somebody who has an engineering degree and you have a physics degree, we hate word problems. So don't skip them.
But I see their value. I know.
I get it. But
I offer a lot of support, and I'm very empathetic and very supportive as my children are doing the 1 or 2 word problems that they've got to do. I'm like, I know. I'm going to help you. Where's the important information? Write it down. What are we trying to do? What do those words mean? What concepts are they making echoes to? Oh, that's an addition problem. Great. Now let's do the addition, right?
So
I really like to support them through it because I know it's so challenging.
It's
I know it's so
challenging,
difficult.
and I get the whole like word problems, real life thing, but also in real life, I work with a whole team of engineers.
Well, you work on spreadsheets all the time.
Yeah,
right?
they're going to look at something and they're going to say, tolerance of this equals blah, dimension of this equals blah. They don't write a paragraph about it, right? So nobody really does that. I appreciate word problems if you're going to give me erroneous information that just has a variable. It's dimension of this whatever equals blah, because that's what we really do. We don't ever say, well, 3 engineers went to measure a new spring part. And on that part, this is what happened. And then they looked over here and this is what, and you're like, wait, no.
You have to be Detective Poirot and
Yeah,
Agatha Christie's
we don't
writing
actually do that.
all these word problems.
Anyway, that's my rant. Okay. So let's get on to some helpful tools and
If you
resources.
thought we hated standards, you just talk about word problems.
Jeez. So we've got a few resources that can help explain the standards. There's Illustrative Mathematics, which has got cool tasks and explanations of each standard.
And then there's also Khan Academy, and then obviously very helpful, a lot of YouTube videos and problems there. And then there's also IXL, and they have a bunch of resources as well to kind of walk you through that and kind of train.
Yeah,
your
IXL is really good.
Yeah, really good. It's very, very aligned to Common Core. So if you're looking for something there as well to drill, it can be very dry. So be a little bit leery. If you have a learner that doesn't have as much patience as other students, it may not work for them, but it's definitely worth a try, especially if you're trying to understand the level where your child is. If you're thinking in terms of grades, I know not all of us like to do that, and for my standpoint, I'm not a grades guy. I don't like the idea of grades. I like the idea of competency, tracking that. But I understand that the world is built around grades. So if you are trying to understand where your learner is, and you want to know where they are and where they need to go, that's another option for you to do. A couple curriculum that obviously that we like. We always mention Math Mammoth and Right Start Math, but there are other curriculums as well. Things such as Beast Academy, Singapore Math, which is the Dimensions Math, really, really strong program. Saxon Math as well.
And I thought Dimensions Math is what they actually use in school.
Yeah, there's a lot of these curriculums. I think Saxon and Dimensions both are used in schools, so they provide teachers' manuals that have kind of scripted forms as well as practice problems. Look and feel very similar to what we all remember in the public schools, those books that we would get teaching those math concepts. So whatever math curriculum you end up choosing, there are a lot of absolutely amazing math curriculums out there that can solve a lot of these problems. I think from my standpoint, the funny thing with math curriculums is really trying to pick something that your learner is going to like.
Yeah.
And using that to inspire them to do math. Not just taking math as this kind of dry, bland, beige thing in front of us. We speak about beige lovingly. We just changed our house color from beige to blue. So you want to get rid of the beige. And that can be challenging. That can be difficult for students. Game schooling is an awesome way to do that. Yeah. Tying math concepts to real world things that those kids enjoy, whether it's a hobby, whether it's an interest, is a great way to kind of bring that up. So picking a math curriculum, tying that back to something that the students enjoy, picking a math curriculum that maybe might be in line with how they learn and how they think is another strong path for you to do that as well. So when you're thinking about curriculum, you're thinking about standards, you're thinking about math, there's a lot of things to think about. Hopefully this episode has helped you make those decisions, help you kind of decode those standards, head into your state standards, make a nice warm cup of tea and sit down on a Sunday morning and just sit back and read your state standards. It's interesting. I mean, a lot of times, I know a lot of homeschoolers, we don't like talking about the standards. It's not really our jam. No. It's not really something we have to really worry about most of the time. But it is a very important thing for a huge portion of the country's students. And a lot of times, things that I always like to think about is, I don't want to be adversarial to the public schools.
Yeah,
I want to understand how they think, because that can help me inform me on my decisions. Sure. It may inform you, then say, I'm glad I'm not doing this thing. Or maybe you might learn something that you can then apply into your homeschool and make your homeschool better. So definitely don't shy away from, maybe peek at them, take a look at them, read a few pages of them, see what they're all about, and then keep that as some knowledge and information and background as you move forward in your homeschool. So next week, we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to break down ELA standards. ELA standards are very much more like reading the tea leaves and checking the chicken bones at the bottom of the fire
vague.
pit.
Yeah.
Math standards can be a little bit more straightforward. And it's kind of funny we say there's no examples. There are a couple examples in the OSPI Washington State standards, but not in every single standard. There's like randomly like sprinkled throughout, like pepper is an example. So ELA standards are even more amorphous and difficult to understand. So stay tuned next week. We're going to hit the same standards for ELA, and hopefully that can help you get a good understanding of what Common Core standards look like and maybe how to use them in whatever way necessary inside your homeschool.
Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time,
happy homeschooling!